Nelson Mandela is famed for having said resentment is like drinking poison and hoping the other person dies. I think for me, I experienced so much blame and resentment in medicine and dentistry, in parenting, hell, in life. If you've been troubled in your life, or if you're experiencing some challenges in a relationship with someone else, or a relationship with yourself, with your body, with past decisions, then this episode is going to be enormously empowering for you, because in this episode, I'm going to be sharing with you one of the most powerful practices I have found to heal from resentment and blame. Hello, and welcome to the Business of Happiness podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tarryn McCarthy. Hello. Today is going to be a phenomenal day. If you want to improve anything in your life, there's only one place to look, and that is inside of you. I know, it's crazy. Even relationships. Even a relationship that has been so hurtful, so painful, where somebody else has really done you wrong. Even a relationship with your own body. Even something that you're holding so much anger and resentment towards and just cannot seem to forgive. You know, it's so interesting because we hear this about forgiveness all the time, and we know it's true that when you forgive, it's not just for the other person, it's for you. It's that ability to set down the resentment and the blame and the anger. So often we blame other people outside of ourselves. There's always someone else to blame. Blame is so much easier than taking responsibility. I know that any time I've held on to that resentment and blame, it's kept me stuck. And sometimes I'm not even aware that I'm doing it until I realize something isn't shifting in my life. I'll never forget, I had an experience with a former boss. So right after I got out of orthodontic residency, I worked in an orthodontic practice. And the orthodontist that I was working for was not an easy woman to work for. She was very stressed all the time, and she was hard. She had to be. At the time, she really was very successful. She's brilliant, very good at what she did. She was very compassionate with her patients, but not very compassionate and kind and warm to her colleagues, the people she worked with, her team, her associates who worked in her office. And man, I found myself building up a lot of resentment. After I left that practice and realized that I couldn't work in that office anymore, and I went on and I actually purchased a practice of my own and started building up, I had let that go, that part of my life go. I was grateful for the lessons I'd learned. I was grateful for finding out and discovering what I didn't want to do as a leader. I knew exactly how that made me felt as an employee, and I knew what I didn't want to do. And I learned from the great things she taught me as well, right? There were so many beautiful things she taught me. She was a brilliant woman, go-getter. She made things happen. She created a beautiful practice, and she positively impacted thousands of kids' lives every year. She had a business that employed incredible women and allowed them to feed their families. Really amazing woman. But I let go of that attachment to her, and we really didn't stay in touch because I was still harboring quite a bit of resentment and anger at how I perceived she treated me, and what I had hoped would happen in that practice really didn't turn out. And really, we found out that we couldn't work together. But, I still held a little bit of resentment and blame towards her. I didn't even realize I was doing that. And it was decades later, literally, I'd say about a decade and a half later, when I realized I still was thinking of her. And you know what reminded me of it? is she had given me a pair of earrings as a gift. I don't know if it was a birthday present or a Christmas present while I was working with her, but she'd given me these really beautifully bent wire, gold thread, gold wire bent earrings, which was so beautiful and poetic as an orthodontist. And I really loved them. I loved the way they looked. I thought it was such a cool gift, but I never wore them because I felt this attachment to her when I did. And so I just left them in my jewelry box. And I think it was about 15 years later when I realized, oh my gosh, I am not wearing this pretty jewelry because I'm still holding on some resentment and anger towards her. And I thought at the time what I would do is write her a letter, because I knew anytime I have something stuck inside of me where something I just can't forgive or let go of, there needs to be some healing inside of me. Remember, if you want to improve anything in your life, there's only one place to look, and that is inside. And if there's any stuck resentment or anger towards someone, that is a source of not allowing you to move forward in some capacity in your life. And I identified this. And it was specifically around my leadership. So I wrote her a letter. I didn't send it. I felt uncomfortable sending it. But in the letter, I just expressed, everything that I felt that she had done and in the ways she had hurt me. And in the letter, I said, I forgive you. I don't think I really believed it at the time. I was hoping the letter would get me there. This story reminds me of so many times in our lives when we find blame for something. We set it on someone else. And when we do that, we don't give it a chance to heal inside ourselves. When we don't give it a chance to heal, we just kind of leave the blame, the anger, the resentment on someone else. It goes stale, it goes stagnant, but it never changes. It never transforms into some kind of a healing. And really, if you imagine, we wouldn't have any anger or resentment towards anyone if we didn't care about it. Right? If it didn't impact us, we'd be free. But it's the holding on, it's the attachment to whatever that thing was, even if they were in the wrongdoing, it's the attachment to it that's keeping us stuck. I'm going to tell you a story about an incredible man. You may have heard this story before. I've actually referenced it several times on this podcast, but I don't think I've ever actually given you the background on Dr. Ihaliakala Hulen. He was a Hawaiian therapist, is a Hawaiian therapist, who was working in the Hawaii State Hospital decades ago. And he was assigned to this position because at the time in the Hawaii State Hospital, there was a ward that was specifically assigned for criminally insane patients. And this ward was known for being just an impossible place to work and really had some very bad statistics. So they found that many of the people who worked in the ward, the nurses, the doctors, the support staff, there was major turnover. People were getting injured. People were scared. Patients were attacking and hurting the staff. Very few people stayed on very long. The patients themselves were getting hurt. They weren't really healing. They weren't being supported by the medical system. And so patients were actually becoming worse on this ward. Dr. Ihaliakala Hulen went to the ward and actually never met with a single patient, and yet was able to heal the entire ward of patients and either get them to a place of calm or to a place where they could actually be treated, or actually get them released, which had been unheard of up until this point. And he never met with a single one of them. That's crazy, because what Dr. Hulen was doing was he was practicing this concept of ho'oponopono, which in Hawaiian culture means to make things right. And the perspective that Ho'oponopono practitioners take is that we are all totally responsible for our own lives. I love that because that's the radical happiness perspective as well. We are all totally responsible for our own lives. And what that means is that simply because something is in your life, it is your responsibility. And in a very literal sense, the entire world is your creation. Now, I know we talk a lot about perspective here, and that when you see something, your perception is what gives it color, what gives it data, that everything is essentially meaningless until we add meaning to it. We talk a lot about that here on this podcast. But the Ho'oponopono perspective is that it is more literal than that you are creating your reality, that the world is your creation, and that we do take responsibility for it. So what he did was he went into a room away from all the patients and looked into each of their patient files and would say this Ho'oponopono prayer over each one of them, over and over and over again. And that was it. That was his entire philosophy. Crazy. I know it seems fantastical, but I'm bringing it to you here because this was one of the practices that saved me from that relationship in my life where I just couldn't forgive my former boss. But not only that, it's something that has transformed a relationship recently that I've had with my own body. I don't know if any of you have listened to previous podcasts, but in the past, I've had a lot of self-image issues about my own body and dealt with various forms of eating disorders throughout my life. And this has been perpetuated. And the Ho'oponopono prayer is what has come to my rescue every single time in a real sense of the word. So I want to share with you a little bit more deeply about Ho'oponopono and give you a resource for any situation in your life that you just can't resolve. If it's a mother-in-law, another dentist, maybe a patient, maybe an experience from your past that you haven't yet forgiven yourself for, or maybe it's a part of your body or your health that you just can't come to acceptance with. I've been chatting with so many of my friends in their midlife right now, and as our bodies are changing, there are some things we just don't feel like we can accept. My body didn't used to do this, damn it. I used to be able to XYZ, and now I just can't anymore, and I refuse to accept it, and so we fight the reality over and over and over again. And Ho'oponopono has been such a healing resource. So first, I'm going to share with you the steps of Ho'oponopono. And then we're going to do some practicing of it ourselves. And I'll explain to you what we're doing as we do so. So step one is identifying who you want to send these affirmations to. Who being the other person, really identifying the other person, or maybe yourself, or if we're talking about our bodies, the part of your body. So let's take, for example, my right elbow. My right elbow had been giving me so much pain for a long time. That wire bending, holding the handpiece, twisting at a certain angle. I found out that it was actually related to my shoulder, but it was diagnosed as golfer's elbow, really just the opposite of tennis elbow. But I know many of us out there, dentists, are impacted by tennis or golfer's elbow. And it didn't matter. I saw so many physical therapists and chiropractors and all kinds of treatment. I tried acupuncture and pressure point therapy. I was suggested multiple times to have surgery. The surgery just didn't make sense to me. But this Ho'oponopono prayer has actually helped in its healing enormously. I know, it seems crazy, but I'd love to share this with you because sometimes we just need one more resource. We've tried everything. What I like about Ho'oponopono is it works on the subconscious. And it's on the subconscious level where we start to change. Remember what I said at the beginning. If you want to improve anything in your life, there's only one place to look, and that's inside you. And sometimes that means even deeper inside than we're able to see or acknowledge. And so really we need to get to the subconscious level. So step one is identifying who you are talking to, or the body part you are talking to, or maybe it's just your younger self that needs forgiveness. The next thing is remembering these 4 phrases. It's very simple. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. That's it. It's that simple. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry, the first statement is our taking responsibility for ourselves and one another. That connectedness, that oneness, accepting our own responsibility always. And I know at first you think, no, she did me wrong. Why am I saying sorry to her? Trust me, this process works brilliantly. What we're doing is we're owning our humanity and our connection to one another. We're owning our responsibility for every single situation and experience we have in this world. So the first phrase is, I'm sorry. And it's such a great practice, guys, because I wasn't very used to saying I'm sorry. I used to think it was everyone else's fault. So simply by practicing this prayer, I was teaching myself ownership. Now I say sorry so easily. And I forgive myself so easily. But the prayer helped me do so, because if you haven't said sorry for something in a long time, man, will this prayer make it more and more comfortable for you to do so. And it works really well if you know someone who is very bad at saying sorry and you just know they're not apologizing. It works really well. Almost imagine it like a projection of their healing. Remember, Dr. Ihaliakala Hulen was projecting it on these patients. He was healing them from a distance. He wasn't even in the same room with them, but reading their charts and saying this prayer over and over, saying to them, I am sorry, as if he was taking responsibility for their actions. So, I'm sorry. Second phrase, please forgive me. Please forgive me is asking for an apology from the universe. It doesn't matter that you've done anything wrong or that you have. It's a cleansing method to remove the negativity. It helps us move on. What we're trying to do is not be stuck in the situation that it is. You know when you resent someone so much and nothing changes? You resent them, they did you wrong, you resent them. They did you wrong, you resent them. And so we go round and round on this merry-go-round and nothing ever shifts or changes. We keep wishing they'd apologize and they don't. I mean, that's what I did with my former boss. For years, I thought one day she's going to send me a letter that says, I realized that I was not nice to you. I wish I had done better. Of course she didn't. She moved on. I was the one holding on to the resentment. She didn't even remember me probably anymore. I was the one holding on to the resentment. Please forgive me asks the universe for that clearing, for that cleansing of negativity so that we can move forward. Thank you is the third phrase. And see, gratitude is such a big part of the healing process. The gratitude that we're feeling in that moment, in that phrase, is for the forgiveness. It's for the change within you. It's gratitude to yourself for being who you are, for being the person who can let go, who can accept, who can forgive. And then the last one, I love you. And when you're saying I love you, it's to yourself. It's to your body. It's to your home. It's to your growth. It's to the universe. It's to this experience, this journey on earth. And when we say I love you, we're also healing ourselves and our nervous system regulation, right? We're also giving ourselves a little self-compassion. we're softening the blow. It accelerates the healing process. Another reason why I love the Ho'oponopono prayer is because we are regulating our nervous system. We're acknowledging and we're asking for forgiveness and we're saying thank you and we're saying I love you. We're crawling up that emotional vibrational scale to empowerment. And repeating it, these 4 phrases over and over and over again, allows deepening of concentration and focus. It allows subconscious reprogramming for better healing. Isn't that incredible? So let's practice. So I'd love for you to bring into your mind's eye someone who you would like to send these affirmations to. So maybe it's somebody who you held some resentment against for some time, or maybe it's a resentment you've held against yourself. Maybe you did something wrong in the past or said something wrong or something you've held guilt or shame around, and you want to get beyond this guilt or shame because you know that's something that's keeping you stuck, or at the very least, just consuming your mind or your attention or your time. And you really could be doing better things with your time. All right, you got it? I'm going to bring one to my mind's eye as well. Okay, I've got one too. Together, we're going to do those 4 phrases, and I'd love for you to repeat it out loud. So wherever you are, I know people are going to think you're crazy. Maybe put on your headphones and go for a walk, or in your car. You can be doing this at any time. And it's so simple. You can remember it so that when you're driving home tonight, you can do it again. But really holding that person, that part of you, that younger you, or that body part in your mind's eye is important. And saying these things out loud is important. So we're going to do it together. Follow me. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I want you to say it now from a place of deep compassion for the object of your affirmations, for whether you're talking to someone else or to your former self or to a body part. I want you to say it with deep compassion. Imagine what they've been feeling and going through as a subject of your resentment and your anger. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I want you to say it now as your higher self, kind of pulling yourself out of the situation and seeing it from a greater perspective, realizing the enormity of this incredible universe, of the solar system, of how small we are, how little we are, how insignificant our words and our actions are on planet Earth in the bigger scape of things. I am so sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. Keep that perspective. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And now do it from the perspective of how huge every word we say, how much the words we say impact the world around us, and what a big impact we have on everybody in the awe of your actions and your impact on a daily basis. I am sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And now I want you to say it from a place of already knowing that forgiveness is granted. The enormous gratitude knowing that this is already done. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. And now one more time with enormous love, all the love that you can muster inside of you. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. I invite you to just keep saying it over and over and over again. The subconscious work happens in the repetition. The subconscious work happens when we allow ourselves to sink deeper and deeper into the focus and really imagine ourselves facing that person, being present, looking them in the eyes, and offering these words of I'm sorry, feeling that deeply inside of ourselves. Please forgive me. Thank you. I love you. You know, I wonder, as you're saying these phrases, I wonder if you could just imagine a journey for a moment. Imagine it's December 2024, a full year from now. What would be different in your life if you took 100% responsibility for every single thing in your life? What would be different? What would be different in your relationships if you assumed 100% responsibility? What would be different in your finances if you stopped living from a place of victimization, like somebody else has something out against you, or there's something out there that's limiting you from enormous abundance and wealth? What would be different in your bank account, in your business, if you took 100% responsibility and stopped blaming everyone else? What would be different in your body, in your health, in your vitality, in your sleep, if you took 100% responsibility? What would be different, in your happiness, if you took 100% responsibility for your time, your boundaries, your ownership of your self-care? What would be different a full year from now if starting right now today, you took 100% responsibility? How would your life be different? I mean, just say it out loud right now. What would be different in your life, in your marriage, in your patient care, if you took responsibility for being present in every moment that required it of you? Those precious moments of conversations with your patients, conversations with your team members, conversations with your significant others, conversations with your family members. If you took responsibility for it and stopped blaming other people, how could 1 year change? It's huge. It's such a big thing. As I'm sitting here, I'm being brought to tears just thinking about it for myself. What would change in a year? And so I'd love to invite you to join me. I'm having this beautiful Reflect and Renew workshop on December 29th, and we're going to be talking about intention setting for the next year and how to take responsibility for all those components: relationships, health and wealth, I lump them there together, but separately. Looking at our happiness, looking at relationships. What would happen if we took full responsibility, and what would that even look like? And how can we align with our intentions and not fall off these New Year's resolutions in February, right? We have these great ideas January 1st. And if we look back over the decades, historically, it didn't go so well. In fact, 80% of us fall off our New Year's resolutions by the second week of February. Did you know that? That's true. What if this year was different? So join me on December 29th, by the way, for the Reflect and Renew workshop. It's going to be so powerful. It's happening on a Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time, and clear a good 2.5 hours from your schedule. I'll leave the link in the show notes, but just go to my website, thebizofhappiness.com, and you'll see it right at the top there. And be sure to register, because I'm not going to open this to hundreds of people. We're going to keep this fairly small. So be sure to get your seat. And it comes with a beautiful workbook as well, so that you can take it back and do more reflection after we've met. But before then, I just would love you to imagine, what would that look like? How could your life be different? And I give you this Ho'oponopono prayer to take with you as one practice to support you. And even ask yourself, what would be different a year from now if I was able to heal that resentment in me and uncover the ones that are still lingering and heal it with this prayer? I can't wait for you to try it. It has changed so many relationships in my life. The people who I was saying the prayer to didn't even know it. I have said it out loud to somebody, and man, did that end in tears and love and gratitude, and really made a big shift for us in our relationship. So I invite you to use it anywhere and everywhere, mostly because it'll make you feel good. And of course, when you feel good, that's when you can do good. Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Business of Happiness podcast. If this episode brought you new perspective and value, I invite you to subscribe so that you catch all upcoming episodes, and leave us a review. And if you know of a friend or colleague who could benefit from this perspective, share this episode with them and empower their day. For more information about the Business of Happiness and the Radical Happiness for Practitioners course, find me on www.thebizofhappiness.com. See you there.